And you know, if you're a bunch of other celebrities are there, you're like, oh look, Bill Clinton's here. This is fine. Yeah, this is cool. Look at this. Like Brad Pitt's here. Well, this is cool. You don't even think there's anything wrong with being there.
Before we begin, listen carefully because here you have high-quality content. Viewer discretion is advised. What you're about to hear is disturbing, emotional, and real. This is not a story. This is testimony, official, documented, and explosive. On day 14 of the federal trial of Sean Diddy Combs, something happened that no one saw coming. The room was quiet, tense. Then the judge called the next witness. A ripple swept across the courtroom. Yes, that Brad Pitt, the movie star, the icon, the man known for fiercely guarding his privacy, now stepping forward to testify, under oath. And what he revealed stunned the room into silence. Brad Pitt met Diddy in 2018 at an Oscars after-party in Beverly Hills.
I was running to things to avoid tough feelings, painful feelings. I just didn't know how to deal with them, and looking for anything I use for escape. Those kinds of, I guess, difficult feelings. I don't know how better to describe it.
The casual exchange turned strange when Diddy invited him to come by sometime. Just us. Talk like men. Curious and unaware, Pitt accepted. A week later, he was at Diddy's mansion. The atmosphere? Strange. Dark hallways. Incense. Mirrors angled in unsettling ways. Music that looped endlessly. Diddy met him in silk pajamas and said, "I don't believe in small talk after dark." Then, he led Brad downstairs. What Brad found was not a wine cellar, not a home theater. It was a ritual space. Mirrors on every surface, candles lit, a steam shower built into the wall. Diddy handed him a drink and said, "You've made it."
Quote, "I'm realizing as a real act of forgiveness for myself for all the choices that I've made that I'm not proud of, that I value those missteps because they led to some wisdom, which led to something else."
Now let's clean off the rest of who you used to be. Then Diddy stepped into the shower and invited Brad in. He said, "It's just water, just trust." Brad hesitated, but the pressure was silent, heavy. He stepped in. He testified that nothing sexual happened, but what did happen was worse. Emotional confusion. Vulnerability. Words like, "This is how kings reconnect. You're safe now because you're with me." Pitt said he didn't sleep for 3 nights after that, but still. He returned. Then came the dinners. No food, no talk, no clothes, just 2 men lying side by side on a glass table under red chandeliers.
Information and what you can hide. Not what you can prove, but what you can hide. Why ain't nobody talking about the fact that those Diddy tunnels go to Hugh Hefner's house?
Surrounded by mirrors, Pitt thought it was performance art, until he noticed black lenses in the lights, distorted reflections in the glass. They were being filmed. He confronted Diddy. Diddy smiled. No one believes art unless it's archived. Weeks later, Brad received a navy leather-bound document titled Wellness Agreement, Private Communion Protocol. It had legal terms, a notary seal, his name. It forbade him from ever speaking of cleansing experiences. It stated, "All silence shall be honored as consent." Brad didn't sign it, but that didn't stop what came next. Calls went unanswered. Business deals evaporated. Rumors spread. And then, gifts.
You know, to see if this dude, Diddy, is the monster that he has shown by all the different lawsuits, by all the different charges and the allegations.
Black candles shaped like faceless figures, incense soaked in unknown chemicals, a white feather sealed in glass, and finally, a handwritten note. "You're in the Brotherhood now. Don't break the circle." In 2021, Brad Pitt decided to speak directly to Sean Diddy Combs. He went to a private party in Miami, even though he wasn't invited. He wanted to cut ties and make it clear that he didn't want to be involved anymore. When he told Diddy he was done, Diddy didn't argue. He simply looked at Brad and said, "You can leave. But you'll never be clean again." According to Pitt, things started falling apart quickly after that. A big movie deal he was working on suddenly fell through. His talent agency stopped answering his calls. A film producer even texted him saying, "You upset someone you shouldn't have. I can't help you this time."
Diddy has said this. He said, "When I give a party, I have to have an ambulance outside of the house. Paramedics ready. That people have to take IVs." Remember the time that him and his mama kissed each other on the lips?
Then, in 2022, something strange happened. A man showed up at the gate of Pitt's house and dropped off a black box. He didn't say a word and left immediately. Inside the box were disturbing items. High-quality photos of Brad taken in Diddy's home, specifically in the basement and shower area. Some of the photos showed Diddy with him, posing and smiling. There was also a flash drive with video clips. The videos showed the strange, silent dinners Brad had talked about earlier, where no one spoke, and the room was full of mirrors. One clip showed Diddy whispering in Brad's ear, something Brad said he didn't even remember happening. The final video was just Diddy speaking to the camera. He said, "There's beauty in power, especially when it's borrowed. You borrowed mine, Brad. Remember that."
Like, what the fuck is going on? How many guys were on video saying, ain't no party like a Diddy party? LeBron?
Everybody know ain't no party like a Diddy party, so.
Yeah, how about Ashton Kutcher?
Diddy party stories. Man, that was like some weird memory.
Brad said this wasn't blackmail, it was a warning. A way of showing that Diddy still had control. At first, Brad stayed quiet. His lawyers told him not to respond. They said speaking out could ruin his career and reputation. But then the trial began. More people started sharing their stories. That's when Brad realized he wasn't alone. He wasn't the exception. He was part of a pattern. Soon after, he got one last phone call. No name, no number. Just a short sentence. Tell him to keep his mouth shut, or we'll shut it for him. That was the breaking point. That night, Brad made his decision. He would go to court. He would tell the truth. He would no longer stay silent.
Finally, you learn via the press that actually Diddy has been collecting evidence on all of you, and you don't know where those tapes are. That will buy your silence for quite some time.
Calm, but his eyes told a different story. One of exhaustion, of trauma, and of a man finally ready to speak. For the first time, the courtroom wasn't looking at a movie star. It was looking at someone who had been broken in private, far from the cameras, far from the lights. He began by explaining how everything changed the day the black box arrived. Inside it, staged photographs, footage he never consented to, and a flash drive filled with the kind of truth you can't unsee. That moment shattered the carefully constructed silence he had tried to live inside.
It just could have been done a different way, and now it's starting to worry me. And I honestly think that Diddy will get out, and I think that there's nothing here.
From that point forward, nothing was the same. He pulled away from public life. Slowly at first, canceled appearances, missed premieres, unanswered calls, then completely. He isolated himself from Hollywood, from friends, from even those closest to him. He believed for a time that silence would heal him. But it didn't, it echoed. It grew louder in the quiet. For months, he lived in that echo until one day something changed. He saw someone else speak out. Cassie Claw Harris, another witness. Another victim. Another survivor. Her story wasn't identical, but the pattern was unmistakable. It was the same playbook. And suddenly, everything made sense. This wasn't confusion. It wasn't strange behavior or eccentric celebrity culture. It was psychological control. It was systematic, deliberate. Brad realized he hadn't been singled out. He'd been caught in something much bigger. He was just one more name pulled into the orbit of someone who thrived on silence and submission. Then came the phone call. No caller ID, no noise, no screaming. Just a single, calm voice delivering a line that chilled him to the bone. Tell him to keep his mouth shut, or we'll shut it for him. It wasn't a threat. It was a message, a reminder that someone was watching, that the silence was expected. He sat motionless for nearly a minute after the call ended. And then, for the first time in years, he moved with purpose. He grabbed a pen, sat down, and began writing. Every moment. Every detail, every whispered phrase, and every twisted ritual. He wrote it all down because he had made a decision. He would no longer be a trophy, and he would no longer be silent. When he shared his decision with his team, the reaction wasn't panic. It was heartbreak. His manager cried, not out of fear, but out of recognition. He had sensed something was wrong for years. He just hadn't known how deep it went. That was the moment Brad understood. He wasn't paranoid. He wasn't alone. And most importantly, he wasn't crazy.
If Diddy hadn't done anything, if Diddy wasn't involved in anything, ain't nothing they could do to you. They could come at you, but if you got enough money like he had enough money, you understand? Whatever they say, the lies don't stand, bro.
In court, he didn't speak with anger. There was no performance, no drama, just the steady, unwavering tone of a man who had finally accepted his truth. He didn't want revenge. He wasn't after headlines. What he wanted was peace. And for the first time in a very long time, he wasn't hiding anymore. He said, I came here not because I want revenge, not because I hate Sean Combs, but because if I stayed silent, I'd be exactly what he made me, a prop. Then he turned toward the jury. I've played a lot of roles in my life, but what I lived with Sean Combs wasn't a character. It was real, and it almost erased me. He spoke of identity, of how fame and wealth had once made him feel untouchable. But Diddy didn't care about fame. He cared about silence, about making someone like Brad Pitt, someone with everything, feel like he had nothing. Then came the moment that no one in the room will forget. Brad recalled one night, months after it all ended. He stood in his own bathroom staring at the shower. The water ran for 20 minutes, but he couldn't step in. It wasn't just a shower anymore, he said. It was a memory I couldn't scrub away. And then, for the first time, Brad Pitt turned directly to Diddy. Their eyes locked, and the air in the courtroom went still. Brad said, "You didn't break me, but you did something worse. You made me question who I was." He turned back to the judge. "I'm here today not to reclaim my image, not to protect my legacy, but to finally draw a line in the sand." And with one final breath, he said, "You don't get to own my silence anymore." Then came his last words on the stand. "You called it connection. You called it trust. But what you really built was a prison, and I've served my time." The judge called for recess. No one moved. There were no whispers, no reactions, just silence. Heavy, still, suffocating.
Meanwhile, you're getting drugged up and filmed, and then they're passing out punch. You have some punch, and all of a sudden you're like, I'm feeling really good.
As Brad stepped down from the stand, he didn't look back. Outside, the world had already changed. Reporters stood frozen, cameras rolling, news tickers blazed. Brad Pitt testifies against Diddy in explosive Day 14 revelation. Inside, legal analysts scrambled for explanations. Some called it career suicide, others, a cultural reckoning. But those who heard him speak knew it wasn't performance. It wasn't strategy. It was release. Brad Pitt had no film to promote, no album to drop. He stood there, stripped of stardom, finally free of the silence. And as one producer whispered to a journalist in the back row, "I've covered federal trials for 15 years. I've never seen a man that famous look that broken. Or that brave." On Day 14, Brad Pitt didn't just testify. He shattered the illusion that silence keeps you safe. And now, the world has to decide what to do with the truth he left behind.